Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm 17 years old, and before all of this happened, I was just a normal kid from a small town in Ohio. I went to high school, played a little basketball, mostly on the weekends with my friends, and spent way too much time on TikTok. Seriously, I could scroll for hours without even noticing the time pass. I lived with my mom and my little sister Emily. My dad left when I was 6, so it's always been just the three of us. My mom works nights as a nurse, and she does everything she can to keep things going. We didn't have a lot, but we were okay. We had love, and we had each other. I was never really the religious type. We weren't atheists or anything, but God wasn't exactly part of our daily life. We said grace on Thanksgiving, maybe went to church if grandma was in town. I believed in something out there. I just didn't think about it much. Honestly, I thought I had all the time in the world to figure that stuff out. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Wednesday. I remember because I had just finished school early for a half day. The sky was gray, and it felt colder than usual for October. I was walking home like I always did, earbuds in, music up loud, lost in thought. I wasn't even watching where I was going. I crossed the street without really looking. I do that all the time, you know. We all do. But this time, it caught up with me. All I remember is this loud screech, brakes, rubber on pavement, people shouting, then black. Complete silence. No sound, no pain, just nothing. I didn't even have time to be scared. Then slowly, something changed. I felt like I was floating, weightless, like I was made of air. At first I thought I was dreaming. Everything around me seemed distant, foggy. Then I looked down. That's when I saw it. My body, lying there on the pavement. People were gathering. Someone was screaming. A man was kneeling next to me, trying to do CPR. My backpack was torn open, and my phone lay shattered a few feet away. It looked like a scene from a movie, but it was real. That was me down there. And yet, I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel pain. I felt peace, like a weight had been lifted, like I was being pulled away from everything I'd ever known. That's when I understood. I had died. Or at least, I had left my body. What came next was something I never expected. Something that would change my entire life. And maybe yours too. I don't know how long I was floating above my body. Time felt different. It wasn't ticking anymore. Seconds didn't feel like seconds. Everything just was. I could see the people below panicking, trying to help, calling for an ambulance. But I wasn't scared. That's the weird part. I should have been terrified. But I felt this strange calm, like I was being held by something bigger than myself. Then something started pulling me upward. Not like gravity, but gentle, magnetic, almost like love itself was reaching out. The noise of the street faded until it was just silence, but not empty silence. It was full, alive, sacred. That's the only word that fits. Ahead of me, there was this light. I know. It sounds cliche, but it wasn't just a bright light. It was more like an opening, a presence. It wasn't blinding. It didn't hurt my eyes. It was warm, like the feeling of sunlight on your face after a long winter, and it made me feel safe, like I was finally going home, even though I had no idea where home was. As I got closer to the light, I started seeing flashes, memories, not just the big moments, but tiny ones I hadn't thought about in years, laughing with my sister over a dumb joke, my mom kissing my forehead when she thought I was asleep. That time I lied to cover for a friend. That moment I said something cruel online just to be funny. It was all there, like a movie playing behind my eyes, and I felt everything, every joy, every regret. But I wasn't being judged. I was being known, fully known, and still completely loved. I entered the light, or maybe it entered me. I still don't fully understand it. But suddenly, I was standing in a place that didn't feel like Earth. It was like pure beauty. The colors were alive. The air sang. There was peace everywhere. And somehow I knew I was standing in a space between life and eternity. And then he appeared. At first, I didn't recognize him. He didn't look like the pictures or the movies. No flowing blonde hair or glowing halo. He wore a simple robe, and his skin was the color of the earth. Deep, warm, rich. His eyes, I can't even describe them. They weren't just looking at me, they were looking through me into the deepest parts of who I am, and even though he hadn't said a word yet, I knew it was him, Jesus. The moment I realized that, I dropped to my knees, except I didn't have knees, not in the way we think. I just collapsed inward. I started weeping, not because I was scared, but because of how much love I felt pouring out from him. It was like standing in front of the sun, but instead of burning me, it healed me. And then, with the softest but most powerful voice I've ever heard, he spoke. Daniel, it is not yet your time, but before you return, I have something to show you. When Jesus said those words, I have something to show you, everything around us began to shift. The light dimmed, but not in a scary way. It was more like the atmosphere became still, like something important was about to happen. He touched my shoulder gently. The moment his hand reached me, we were no longer standing in that beautiful, peaceful place. It changed instantly, like the whole reality had turned inside out. I didn't feel movement, just transition, and suddenly we were somewhere else. It looked like a giant city, but not one I recognized. The sky was dark, almost bruised, and towering above us were endless screens, floating, blinking, constantly shifting. Most of them were filled with fast, colorful videos, people dancing, arguing, selling things, doing pranks, crying. I heard voices, music, shouting. It was all TikTok, just everywhere. Jesus looked at me and said, "Watch closely." The first thing I noticed was the people, thousands, maybe millions of them, walking in lines, staring at their phones. Their eyes were glued to the screens. They weren't looking where they were going. They didn't talk to each other. And I saw something terrifying. They were heading toward a cliff. One by one, they walked right off the edge and vanished into the darkness below. I screamed, "Why aren't they stopping? Don't they see it?" Jesus looked at me, not with anger, but with deep sorrow. Their eyes are open, but their hearts are blind. They crave connection, but the noise keeps them numb. The sound around us changed, became deeper, more chaotic. One of the giant screens above us cracked open, like glass shattering, and from within, something began to crawl out. It was like a shadow, twisting and alive. A shape, always changing. Sometimes it looked like a face, then a mask, then a serpent. I felt this deep cold in my spirit. I didn't want to look at it, but I couldn't look away. Jesus said, "This is the spirit behind the distraction. It feeds on attention. It grows with addiction. It whispers lies and wears 1,000 faces." Then I saw something that shook me to my core. A teenage girl, probably younger than me, was crying in her bedroom. She had her phone in her hand, scrolling through hateful comments on one of her videos. Her hands were shaking. She put the phone down, walked into the bathroom, and locked the door. I begged Jesus not to show me what came next, but he whispered, "You must see what they cannot." Everything went silent. And in that silence, I understood. This wasn't just about TikTok. It wasn't just social media. It was about identity. About how lost we've become, about how something that could have been used for good had become a weapon against our own souls. Tears streamed down my face. I asked him, "What can we do?" He turned to me, eyes full of both fire and mercy, and said, "There is more you must see." Jesus took my hand. His touch wasn't heavy, but it carried so much strength. Not the kind that forces you, but the kind that holds you together when you're falling apart. We moved again. The city faded, and a new vision opened before us. This time, it was a classroom, just like mine. Teenagers sat at desks, heads down, not writing, not listening. Each of them had a phone in front of them, and on every screen, there was a different message. "You're not good enough. Everyone's watching you fail. You need more followers." I saw fear in their eyes, not the fear of war or death, but the silent kind, the fear of not being seen, of not mattering. I asked Jesus, "Why are you showing me this?" He said, "Because the battle for their souls is being fought in silence, behind screens, and they don't even know they're in a war." Then the vision changed again. This time I saw churches, hundreds of them, but they were empty. Dusty pews, closed Bibles, lights off. And outside those churches, crowds of young people were gathered, scrolling, laughing, recording videos, chasing attention. Some were trying to dance over open graves without realizing it. I saw people trying to go viral while their spirits were starving. Jesus said, "They search for meaning in likes and shares, but I offer something that never fades." Tears welled up in my eyes. I felt overwhelmed, helpless. What could I do? I was just a kid. I wasn't a preacher. or a prophet. I didn't even pray that much before this. I looked at him and whispered, "Why me?" He smiled, so gently, so deeply, like he saw everything inside me and wasn't disappointed. "Because you are willing to see, because you will remember, and because you will speak." Then he spoke one final message, and I'll never forget his words. Every syllable felt like it was being carved into my soul. "Tell them this: I am real, I am coming, and my heart breaks for those who've forgotten me. The time is shorter than they think. I don't want to scare them, but I want them to wake up. Not with fear, but with love. I want their hearts, not their performance, their time, not their likes, their attention, not their perfection. Tell them to come back to me while they still can." He paused, then added one more thing. "Especially the young. They are not too far gone. I still have plans for them. Beautiful, powerful plans. But they must choose me, not the screen." Then the visions faded, and all I could see was light again, warm, all-encompassing light, and I knew it was time to leave. I didn't want to. I felt like I had just found what I'd been missing my whole life. But somehow, deep down, I understood. Jesus gently placed his hand over my chest and said, "Now, go, and remember everything." The moment Jesus said go, I felt something shift, like a door closing behind me. The peace, the light, the warmth. It all began to fade. Not violently, not like it was being ripped away, more like a gentle fading, like the end of a song that you wish would keep playing forever. I didn't want to leave. Every part of me wanted to stay in that place, with him. But something deep inside told me I had to come back. I had a reason now, a purpose. Then suddenly, impact, pain, noise, blinding light, but not the kind I had just seen. Harsh hospital lights, beeping machines, voices yelling. My whole body felt like it had been set on fire and I couldn't move. It was like being slammed back into a cage made of nerves and flesh. I gasped for air. I couldn't breathe at first. Nurses were shouting. A doctor was pressing something hard on my chest, and I heard someone say, "He's back. We've got a pulse." Everything was blurry, but I could hear crying. My mom. She was at my bedside, clutching my hand like she never wanted to let go. Tears streamed down her face, and she kept saying, "Thank you, God. Thank you, thank you." I couldn't speak. My throat was raw from the breathing tube, but I wanted to tell her I saw him, that I saw Jesus. One of the nurses leaned in and said softly, "You flatlined for over 3 minutes. We didn't think we were going to get you back. 3 minutes." But what I experienced felt like hours, maybe longer. Time just doesn't work the same on the other side. In the days that followed, the doctors ran every test they could, CT scans, heart monitors, everything. And yet, they couldn't fully explain how I came back the way I did. One of them even said, "It's like your body shut down completely and then just restarted itself." But I knew the truth. Jesus sent me back. At first, I didn't tell anyone. How do you explain something like that? I was 17, not a pastor. People would think I hit my head too hard, that I was hallucinating, but the memory was so real, so clear, I couldn't deny it. I would lie awake in the hospital bed at night, hearing his voice echo in my heart. Remember everything. So I did. And as I healed, I began to realize that I wasn't the same person who got hit by that car. Something inside me had changed. Completely. My priorities. My thoughts. Even the way I looked at my phone. I couldn't just go back to who I was before. Because now, I had a message. A responsibility. A truth too big to keep to myself. When I finally got home from the hospital, everything looked the same. But I wasn't. I remember walking into my room and seeing my phone on the nightstand. It had been recovered from the crash. The screen was cracked, but it still lit up. The moment I touched it, I felt sick. Not because of the phone itself, but because of what it reminded me of. That world I had seen. The people walking toward the edge. The serpent behind the screen. It wasn't just a vision. It was real. I deleted TikTok that night. It wasn't some dramatic, angry decision. It was simple, quiet. I just knew I couldn't go back. Not after what I saw. I didn't want my mind filled with noise anymore. I wanted to hear his voice again, that peace, that love. I didn't want to lose it. I started praying, really praying, for the first time in my life. Not memorized prayers, just talking. Honest, messy, sometimes tearful conversations with God. I told him I was scared. I told him I didn't know what I was doing. I told him I wanted to change, but didn't know how. And you know what? He answered. Not with a voice in the sky, but through little moments. Through peace that didn't make sense. Through people showing up when I needed them. Through a fire in my heart that wouldn't let me stay silent anymore. So now, here I am, telling you this, not because I want views or likes or followers. I don't care about that anymore. I care about you. Whoever you are, wherever you're watching this from, I want you to know something. Jesus is real. He's not a myth. He's not just a symbol in stained glass. He's alive. He knows your name. He sees your pain. He's been watching you scroll, hoping that, just maybe, you'd stop long enough to hear this. And this is what he wants you to know. You are not forgotten. You are not too far gone. You are not your mistakes, your anxiety, your addictions, your loneliness. You were created for something so much more. There is a war going on for your soul, and most of us are asleep, distracted, entertained to death. But he's calling you right now, not with fear, but with love. A love so deep, it breaks you and heals you all at once. If you feel that tug in your heart right now, that's him. Talk to him. You don't need perfect words, just honesty. Ask him to show himself to you, to give you peace, to open your eyes. He will. I'm not special. I'm not holy. I'm just a kid who died and came back with a message. And if you're still here, if you're still breathing, then you've got a reason too. So don't waste another second chasing empty things. Wake up. He's waiting.